You grew up believing that modern wars are won with strategy, weapons, and brute force. But what if I told you that's only half the story? Because there's something no general, president, or military analyst will dare to reveal. A silent technology incomprehensible, far beyond anything developed on Earth. And worse, it didn't come from here. Yes, alien technology has been used in at least 3 recent wars, and it wasn't an accident. Leaked documents, missions that never happened, and soldiers who returned different, all point to one terrifying truth. Tech that appeared out of nowhere, weapons that behave like they can think, interference on the battlefield that no radar can explain. This is no longer theory, it's a pattern. Someone out there is testing us. And no, we're not in control. We're the lab rats. If this is true, and the signs are overwhelming, you need to know what's really going on, because this tech is already here, embedded, activated, hidden in plain sight. And the craziest part, what they tested in war may be coming here next. There are things that, once you learn them, your mind just shuts down. It's like someone pulls the rug from under your reality and reveals a basement full of secrets no one ever told you about. During the Gulf War, for instance, there were reports conveniently buried of soldiers witnessing floating artifacts moving in impossible ways over the battlefield. No sound, no rotor, no turbine, no trace, just presence, as if something was up there, watching, judging. And before you call it a conspiracy theory, remember this. Many of the tech advances we use today, like mini drones and infrared sensors, appeared out of nowhere right after major conflicts. Coincidence? Maybe. But interestingly, the reports of UFOs in those war zones came before this tech went public. Strange, right? What if those weapons are just rebranded versions of something that's been here for decades, just waiting for the right excuse to be unveiled? Think about it. If alien technology fell into the hands of a power-hungry government, what do you think they'd do? Tell the world? Or hide it, study it, and weaponize it? The answer's obvious. Now imagine how many military inventions were actually alien adaptations. And the weirdest part? That might have been just the beginning. Because if it happened once, during the Vietnam War, there were classified records of encounters with flying objects that disabled entire electronic systems. Helicopters froze midair, radios went silent, weapons jammed for no reason. Atmospheric interference? Impossible. Soldiers described glowing formations moving unnaturally and a terrifying silence. Anyone who's been on a battlefield knows absolute silence is scarier than gunfire. It wasn't just 1 or 2 cases, there were dozens, buried in files that shouldn't even exist, but always seemed to leak at just the right moment. Now tell me, who had the tech in the 60s to shut down enemy gear remotely with no trace? It definitely wasn't guerrilla fighters with bamboo spears. And that tech didn't seem to belong to any known superpower either. It felt like a third party, silent, invisible, was testing their toys in our chaos. What if these tests were merely observation experiments, conducted by alien intelligences? What if they're not here to help or destroy, but to study? Like a lab experiment to analyze how we react under extreme pressure. After all, we're better to understand humanity's limits than at the heart of war. And that theory starts to make even more sense when the war in Afghanistan was full of drones, surgical strikes, and high-level surveillance. But one strange detail slipped through the cracks, a triangular-shaped craft spotted hovering over the Tora Bora Mountains. It wasn't American, Russian, or from any known power. Matte black, silent, and moving as if gravity was just a suggestion. Some called it an experimental aircraft. Others told the truth. It was a UFO. Strangely, just weeks after those sightings, the US military announced rapid tech advancements, real-time thermal imaging, quantum encrypted communications, autonomous weapons. Coincidence? Maybe. But these breakthroughs happened way too fast, like they'd been ready and just needed a good excuse to be used. So the real question is, did they come from the Pentagon or from above it? Some high-ranking officials in off-the-record interviews admitted, "We don't know how it works. We just know it works." Sound familiar? To me, that screams reverse engineering. If that's true, we're looking at something deeper than politics or power. Something that doesn't end on a battlefield. Because if these crafts were already watching our wars, ever heard of the Sinai exclusion zone? Most haven't. And those who have, avoid talking. During Middle Eastern conflicts, strange things happened in that area. Soldiers reported glowing lights emerging not from the sky, but the ground. Equipment failed, compasses went haywire, and some troops even retreated in fear. It wasn't an attack, it was presence. Something beneath the surface didn't want to be found. Attempts to investigate failed. The terrain twisted, signals distorted. Some rogue archaeologists posing as researchers believe the Sinai hides more than biblical ruins. Underground structures with metallic hexagonal patterns were reported, made of non-corrosive alloys that shouldn't even exist on Earth. These digs were shut down by higher orders and vanished from the media like they never happened. Now think, what if this region was once a landing site, or worse, an active base used by alien civilizations? Maybe the conflict in the area wasn't accidental. Maybe it was a way to keep outsiders out. And once the dust settles, during the Bosnian War in 1995, NATO fighter pilots reported something beyond protocol, blue lights tailing their jets at impossible speeds, and then vanishing into the sky like they'd been swallowed by another dimension. These lights weren't missiles. They weren't drones. They were something else. Something that defied not only the tech of the time, but our entire understanding of physics. Even veteran pilots came back from missions speechless. They just knew one thing: it wasn't human. Here's what's even more chilling. Every time these lights appeared, entire battles changed course. Weapons malfunctioned, plans unraveled, and some soldiers described temporary paralysis like their minds were being scanned. Was it aliens testing our reactions, or a form of real-time tech disruption to study troop behavior and chaos? Whatever it was, the reports were silenced, and the files remain classified to this day. So if these beings could disable military tech and even interact with soldiers' minds from a distance, what else could they do if they wanted to? And more importantly, were these tests limited to war zones, or are they happening right now, much closer than we think? In the early 2000s, secret operations in the Middle East revealed something terrifying. A satellite picked up a structure over 500 meters wide, buried under the desert. It wasn't natural. It had perfect angles, metallic symmetry, and an electromagnetic field strong enough to block military transmissions. But when boots hit the ground to investigate, the structure was gone. Just vanished, like it had never existed. The engineers said it wasn't man-made, not by us at least. Some compared it to ancient alien architecture described by the Sumerians or Egyptians. Even creepier, the site lined up exactly with ancient pilgrimage routes described in sacred texts, as if past civilizations knew something we forgot. Or worse, as if they learned from someone who came from the stars. Now here's the unsettling part. If something that massive can appear and disappear beneath our feet, what else could be hidden beneath our cities, forests, or oceans? And more importantly, are these ruins from the past? Or are they still in use right now? In modern warfare, information is more powerful than any missile. That's why reports of soldiers having visions during battle were quickly buried. In regions like Yemen and southern Iran, troops from different sides described seeing humanoid figures with black eyes, standing motionless in the chaos. They didn't speak, they didn't move, they just watched, and then suddenly, they'd vanish. At first, it was blamed on stress and trauma, but the reports kept piling up, and the details were eerily consistent. One soldier claimed one of these beings spoke telepathically, saying, "You're not ready yet," sound like the ravings of a broken mind, or direct contact with something non-human? The real question is, what do they want? Why show up without intervening? Are these aliens just observers, gathering data before making a move? And why do they always appear in war zones? Maybe that's when we reveal our darkest selves. Or maybe it's because those moments unlock something deeper within us. During Syria's civil war, a US drone vanished from radar for exactly 7 minutes. When it returned, the footage it transmitted was surreal. It showed metallic structures suspended in air, a blood-orange sky, and life forms that didn't resemble any species on Earth. The most bizarre part? The drone was perfectly intact. No interference, no damage, as if it had briefly crossed into another realm. Analysts dismissed it as transmission error or lens malfunction, but one quantum physicist, who later mysteriously disappeared, suggested the drone might have passed through a space-time fold, like a portal, and that theory lines up with old UFO sightings, where the crafts blink out of existence. If these rips in reality exist and are located in conflict zones, that could explain why many sightings are so brief. Maybe they're not glitches in our perception, but glitches in the system. And if what's on the other side isn't just another place, but another form of war, then we might already be part of a battle we can't even see. In classified operations, some soldiers reportedly developed strange abilities after encountering alien devices on the battlefield. Not physical strength, something deeper. Enhanced intuition. A sixth sense for enemy movements, and in rare cases, telepathic communication. It was like they'd been activated by something dormant inside them, triggered by contact with an intelligence far beyond human. These artifacts were small metallic cubes with unknown inscriptions, glowing when touched. They looked simple, but the effects were profound. Some soldiers became unresponsive to commands, unshaken by fear, focused on something only they understood, as if connected to a different consciousness altogether. What if these objects were alien tools, designed to unlock parts of the human mind we've never accessed? And what if war, with all its fear and adrenaline, was the perfect catalyst to test them? Maybe some soldiers didn't return alone. Maybe they came back, accompanied. There are accounts of ghost helicopters in Central Africa, crafts that appear out of nowhere, show up on no radar, carry no markings, and vanish just as quickly. But the creepiest part isn't the helicopters. It's what happens after. Soldiers in the area start experiencing hallucinations, disorientation, and memory loss, as if they'd been exposed to something that temporarily reprogrammed their minds. Independent investigators theorize that these helicopters are just holographic disguises for alien crafts. Think about it. If you were studying humans in combat, would you show up in a flying saucer? Or would you blend in? Use camouflage. Enter, test, vanish. Clean, silent, undetected. Unless someone happened to really look. And maybe someone did. A former special ops officer claimed to see one of these crafts land in a clearing. As he approached, he saw tall, gray-skinned beings collecting something from the ground. They didn't flinch. They simply turned, stared with black eyes, and vanished with the craft. Which begs a question no one dares to ask. On a mission along the Pakistan-Afghanistan border, soldiers stumbled on a cave that wasn't on any map. But the strange part wasn't the location. It was what they found inside. Glowing panels with no visible power source. Smooth, glass-like walls etched with symbols. And a constant internal temperature of 72 Fahrenheit despite freezing snow outside. It was like that place followed its own set of rules. Not natural, not human. They stayed only 15 minutes, but when they exited, their radios showed over 6 hours had passed. One of the soldiers swore he heard a voice in his mind saying, "You're not supposed to be here yet." The official report? Gas-induced hallucinations. Convenient. But one of those men left the military, isolated himself, and began obsessively studying quantum physics. Whatever he saw, it changed him forever. The truth is, there are places where time, space, and reality bend, and war, with its heavy movement of people and gear, provides the perfect excuse for these anomalies to be accidentally explored. But if these caves are alien access points, or even dimensional doorways, who's really in control? And what happens when someone walks in and doesn't want to come back? In special ops missions across Africa, soldiers went missing for hours, only to return with no memory of where they'd been. But something was off. Their eyes were distant, their calm unnatural. When questioned, they said strange things like, "This isn't our time," or "They're preparing the stage," like they'd been through something beyond human understanding, something involving direct contact with alien entities. Behavioral experts said they showed signs of deep hypnosis, despite never being hypnotized. One soldier began sketching strange symbols that later matched markings seen on alleged UFOs. None of them were ever the same again. And all were silenced by military channels. So what if this didn't happen to just a handful of men? What if dozens, maybe hundreds, have experienced this? What if these contacts are part of a larger plan to study, prepare, or even modify us? It may sound crazy now, but once you connect the dots between appearances and global shifts in behavior, you realize the next phase may have already begun, and no one noticed. During a quiet conflict in the Caucasus, Russian troops unearthed a strange metallic sphere just below the surface. It wasn't a bomb or a drone. It had no bolts, no seams, just a pitch-black surface that bent light in unnatural ways. When they tried to move it, the entire base's electronics went dark. Everything failed, except the sphere. It gave off a pulse, not a sound, but a feeling in the chest, like a silent vibration. When they placed a microphone near it, it captured a digital sequence, 01101111. A coder translated it. Now. A countdown? A trigger? A message? No one knows. Days later, the sphere vanished, loaded onto an unmarked convoy. These devices don't feel like random leftovers. They feel like beacons, seeds planted by aliens, waiting to be discovered at the right time. What if every war hides, beneath the chaos, a hidden artifact meant to activate something dormant, in us or in this planet? During a northern Syria offensive, spy satellites captured a haunting image, a massive, five-pointed star-shaped structure buried underground. It wasn't a military base. It was alive. Heat scans showed rhythmic temperature shifts like a pulse. Military scientists called it a biometallic anomaly, but those who saw it in person whispered it was waking up. The moment they tried to study it, chaos began. Compasses spun backward. Instruments produced impossible readings. A seismograph picked up a continuous low-frequency hum, similar to the infamous bloop recorded in the Pacific. One scientist said the ground was singing, but not in a human tone. So what if this within society's structure at all? What if it's an alien ship, organic, sleeping, waiting for the right moment? Could the war itself have triggered it? The explosions, the digging, the noise, all waking something that wasn't supposed to stir. And when it finally opens its eyes, in covert missions in Iran's mountains, elite forces found strange carvings in stone, but not in any known human language. The markings glowed under moonlight and gave off vibrations you couldn't hear, only feel in your bones. Soldiers reported headaches, and some had vivid dreams of aliens walking beside them in the desert. Even stranger, the symbols responded to touch. They shifted when touched by certain people, almost like they were reading DNA. One soldier claimed that when he touched a mark, he saw flashes of stars and a single message in his head. You came too soon. Hallucination? Or a warning from something far older than we are? If these symbols are truly communications from beyond, then we aren't just finding signs of an ancient visit, we're touching a living language, one that may connect our very DNA to something not of this earth. And if that's the case, war might just be the perfect cover for the real message. Now that you know all this, let me ask you something. Will you keep believing war is just about oil and politics? Or are you ready to admit we're part of something much bigger, maybe even a prelude to direct contact with alien life? What would you do if the next war wasn't fought by humans, but by hybrid technologies built on knowledge we were never meant to access? Are you prepared to live in a world where the truth is hidden in broad daylight? Where UFOs show up, act, disappear, while we're distracted with fake news and controlled narratives? And the most important question, why has no one ever told you this? Because the more you know, the more dangerous you become to those who profit from your ignorance. Now tell me, what will you do with this information? If this made you think, if something deep inside just clicked, then subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications, and join us for what comes next. Because what you've seen here is just the tip of the iceberg, and in the next videos, we're diving even deeper, much deeper.